Let me get this 667 out of the way here. It's going to be coming up for sale here pretty quick. Gentlemen, we're here. It is time to talk about ground bonding. Okay? This is a mystical thing. As in, like, everybody's going to have an opinion on how I do this. And some people are going to agree and other people are going to disagree with it. I'm just going to give you a bunch of general ideas to start thinking about. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to go about doing it. There's a lot of guys that will claim that you can use little tiny wire to do bonding. I don't believe in that at all. As I expressed in the previous video in this series, bonding is next. Bonding is one of the things that you have to do if you're going to have a serious talking mobile. And it helps bring everything to the same potential. Hold on one second. Okay, so like I was saying, my wife just walked out of here, so I wanted to say goodbye to her real quick. Over here I've got all the eyelets I'm going to use. Now, there's two schools of thought when it comes to how to bond. What I did for a lot of years, and still do to this day on certain applications, is if you want to have a flat connection, I just take a pair of hemos as in hemostats, and I'll clip this, and then I'll fill this wire in here with solder so it can't fray out. I'll drill a hole through it, and then with a star washer and a clean metal surface on the other side, I'll run a self-tapping through screw and suck it down. That is one way of doing it. You can do that in lower moisture areas and places where you don't have to worry about dirt, filth, and all that kind of stuff. On the frame, on the other hand, me personally, this is a personal thing, I prefer to use eyelets. I like having that crimped connection on there that's soldered, and I only have to worry about the dissimilar metals of the copper to the steel. Not the copper, nickel, lead, tin, flux, all that kind of stuff in there. First vehicle I did it with just flat braid strap everywhere. Worked good. Worked really good for a long time. And I guarantee you that if I still went over today and I grabbed that truck and we put the antenna back on it, it would still talk just the same. So, your ground, people mix electrical ground and RF bonded ground together all the time. And they're two separate universes in my head. I want my electrical potential to be vast and big, and the cable to be much bigger than what I need to carry the current. Not big enough to carry the current, much bigger to be able to carry the current. I like to overkill. I cannot stand having loss at the eyelets. That's the reason why instead of just hydraulically crimping, we also solder, because that's the weakest link in the entire chain of events, especially in heavy amp load environments. And I like to have more ground than is absolutely necessary. Now, the general idea, I hate to say general rule of thumb, because I deplore that saying when people say, oh, it's general rule of thumb. I hate that. A rule of thumb is all about beating women with a stick. Okay? Sorry, raised by all women, I have nothing but love and respect for women, and I personally think that that is a disgusting term. You know, it's okay to beat your wife with the stick as long as it's smaller than the thickness of your thumb. That's what they mean by rule of thumb. The general idea, anyhow, back on topic, the general idea is that you want your ground to be about every 18 or 20 inches down the length of the vehicle, from frame to body. That way there's no place that's more than about 8 inches from ground. Think about it. That'll make sense. Now, my personal self, what I like to do is twofold. I want to double down. If we take our ground wire, this 4 gauge, what we're going to use, under the body, okay, and we lay this out, there's about a bajillion strands of wire in here. Each one of those has its own potential for electrical conducting capability. This is the same size as my coax shield, but then there's this many more of them. So the total surface area combined, but we're going to spread it out. Okay? Then we're going to use 1-inch wide flat braid, which is 4 times the size of my coax. And this would be good for you to use all the way up to like 213 and 7/8 heliax in the mobile. After that, you're going to have to go wider. Once again, especially from the antenna point. Okay, I'm not planning on doing anything crazy in my truck. I might throw the 64 pill in there just to put these new 500 amp alternators to the test. MechMan sent me multiple sets. They sent me a set of 400s and 370s and 500s. And that's because I've got to do an installation instruction video, which you all are going to get to enjoy for them as a company. Okay, so we'll cover all of that later. There's some pros and cons to that I learned from them. So what I'm going to do is there's approximately 5 ground points that I need to apply in my truck. And this is just from underneath the cab at the edge of the wheel well to the next wheel well at the back. So 5 grounds per side, total of 10 grounds from frame to body. Remember, your vehicle body sits on insulators, rubber insulators, and it floats. The whole joint floats. You want to be able to maintain your ability to have body roll on the frame, and the frame to be able to roll independently of the cab, and you want to be able to have flex. So you don't want these straps to be tight. So when we go to install them, there's going to be a lot of stuff like this, or a lot of stuff that's like this. So as the body moves, flexes, and rolls, our ground straps never have a chance to pull tight, be taut, rip apart, get damaged, or damage the body of the vehicle. Okay? It doesn't take much. Most of your electrical connection is surface area over pressure. Okay? The ability to have a clean joint that is flat, like, see, this has got a little twist in it from when I put it in the vise to drill a hole in it. I got to come back and I'll straighten these out so they're nice and flat. Contact surface to contact surface flat over vast surface area means good connection. Okay, so clean metal, good contact surface area, and then covered up with a decent layer of some kind of acid etched good primer / clear with paint, because we want to keep moisture out of this joint. I don't care about moisture getting in the braid. I don't care about moisture getting down inside the connection because we've got it soldered. We're not going to be able to interfere with that soldered connection. We've got the cold weld pressure bond that's taking place in the eyelet. Plus then we've got an actual physical, mechanical, electrical connection, okay, of the solder. So this eyelet, for all intents and purposes, is sealed as far as the water is concerned. But this joint, where it makes contact with the body, right here at the eyelet, is hyper important. We want to keep moisture out of here as best we can. That's why we're going to prep the surface area, make it clean on the body, and then we're going to attach the eyelet to it with washers and nuts with bolts and hardware to hold it tight with lock nuts on it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to coat that with paint. The paint acts as a sealant around the edge of the eyelet. Now, I did an install on my business partner's truck a couple years ago, like about 5 or whatever it was. And he got himself an all aluminum metal tonneau bed. The kind that folds up in the middle is super titty nice. Well, what we did is we drilled a hole right in the center of that center support action, because it folds up both ways. And that's where we put our puck. Well, I took the puck, I took ground wires that come off the puck, went to the center support rail, came out about 18 inches, put a ground, come to the corner, put a ground, then put a ground braid from that corner immediately around the joint to the next panel on the bed. And I did it on both corners. And then that wire proceeded to carry on, go down, get bonded on the edge of the bed. So now I'm bringing the tonneau cover to the same potential as the bed. Then we went through the floor and down to the frame, and then brought it onto the frame. So that brings the frame, the side of the bed of the truck, the tonneau cover, and the actual centerpiece, all to the same electrical potential as the frame. So the RF sees all of these things at the same electrical potential. Okay? And it wants to radiate off of all of those flat surfaces evenly. The edge of the bed, we did the tailgate, we did the back side of the tonneau cover, we did his doors, we did his hood, we did all of those things. That way the RF sees the bed of the truck, the cab of the truck, and the side of the truck roughly is the same electrical potential. Now, I get this question all the time about headache rack mounts. These guys will go, they'll put the Billy Bob headache rack in the back of their truck. And they'll put the puck right behind the rear window at the center of the headache rack. And they go, man, I can only talk like 2 or 3 miles. That antenna's up high, what the shit? And they get all bent. And what they don't think about is the RF doesn't see the cab. You can take a multimeter, beep, beep, it's got conductivity for shit and for sure. That headache rack, the RF's got to go all the way down the headache rack, then to the bed frame, then back up the bed, all the way down the bed frame, then back up the bed frame, all the way back around to the body mount, through the body mount, back down to the frame, through the frame, back up to the next body mount, all the way back to the cab, then all the way up that back wall of the cab, then all the way up to the roof. So if we take and we stretch all that out, we'll say, here's the antenna sitting back behind the cab on the headache rack. Down, we're going down, 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 around, up, over, back and around, then back up, then back, and then to the flat portion of the roof again. We're talking like 15, 20 feet away. So the RF is trying to bounce off the roof, but electrically, the roof cab that they're sitting next to, the antenna's sitting next to, is like 20 feet away, as far as the antenna is concerned. So what we'll do is we'll take out the rear tail light, or the bed light, and inside there's always an interior liner. We'll polish the paint off of that. We'll take 2 or 3 straps that are like 1 inch wide. We'll come off the antenna mount point. We'll sneak them down underneath the bed light or over the top of the bed light down inside. We'll attach that inner liner, and then we'll put the tail light back in, the bed light. And what happens is now that antenna has got like a 4 or 5 inch wide piece of metal, as far as it's concerned, that's attached to the base of its antenna directly to the flat point. And all of a sudden they start talking like crazy. So having it sitting up on the headache rack up here makes the RF go almost straight up in a cone pattern. There's a way to visualize it, Ned. Is that the actual electrical? There's going to be some guy out there, that's not how that works, I don't know. It's the easiest way for me to be able to describe it, for people to help visualize it in their head. You guys got to give me a little bit of a margin there. You have to be understanding that I'm just trying to describe the electrical principles. We bring the roof of the truck up to the same electrical potential as the antenna as far as distance, flat surface area, and proximity. And all of a sudden it's got this whole flat surface to radiate off of. I had a nice guy message me today. He watched the video that I just did on the antenna, and he goes, well, why didn't you just get something that goes in the tailgate of the hitch of the truck and put the whip up on it? I said, well, bud, that flat metal surface of the roof allows us to have reflection and a counterpoise that is at 90-degree angle to the antenna radiator. On top of the roof of the Suburban, if I put the antenna back here, I'm going to be talking off the front end of the truck. Okay, if I put the antenna in the middle, I'm going to be talking roughly in a 360-degree pattern. If I put it off the front bumper, I'm going to be talking off the back corner of the truck. So if I put it all the way here at the back of the truck, I got to have it better here. If I put it back here at the back of the truck, now the antenna is going to go down to the hitch, up to the hitch, out up to the frame, up and around to the body, and it's going to see the roof of the truck at a different electrical potential than the counterpoise at the base of the antenna. So if we simply move the antenna over, does everybody get that it's Saturday? Like 20 phone calls already today. If we simply take the antenna and move it over to the roof of the truck, we can utilize the flat ground plane of the door in the back, the hinge door on the back of the Suburban, and then we've got all this metal mass in front of us. Now, ultimately, ideally, if I was just going to have one antenna on my truck, I'd put the antenna in the middle of the truck, up here in the middle. That way I'd have the most ground plane side to side and front to back. And that would allow me to talk in a 360-degree pattern as best I can. I'm fat, I'm old, and I'm lazy, and maybe in the future I want to put multiple antennas on my truck. I went ahead and I put it here at the back, because I can step up on my hitch, put my hand on the antenna, take it off, put it in the truck, and go cruising down the road. Or if it's out in the middle of the truck, it's a little bit more of a pain to get to. Those are some simple antenna principles to think about. Does the RF actually radiate up in a cone when there's no ground below it? No, it kind of emits off the tip, and it's got a different lobe pattern to it. When I describe it to people, that helps them visualize it. I've literally tried to describe to them how the energy emits from the tip and how it creates the lobe pattern, and nobody gets that. But I say, think about it like it's going and it's emitting as a cone up to the sky. But as soon as you put a metal surface below it, the RF wants to grow off the antenna and have a more circular pattern. It lays that conical shape out. That's the way I go about describing it. Is it technically correct? No. But give you an example. I was in a group of guys the other day in a Pal Talk room, and I was talking about an antenna above ground in a beam configuration. The height of the antenna above the ground truly dictates the takeoff angle of the antenna. And I made the mistake of saying that the RF actually travels down to the ground and bounces off the earth. Once again, me trying to explain it to a layman, talking to a bunch of experts. It ended up getting me in a lot of trouble because these guys are like, oh, you don't know even how it works. I understand that it's the antenna's proximity to the earth, which is a coupling effect, which is how it drives the RF into the atmosphere. It doesn't actually kind of bounce, but tomato, tomato. Back to bonding. I'm going to use these straps for underneath the hood. People are going to look at these all the time. So I'm putting black nylon guard on this. This is the other one for underneath the hood. I want to show you what it looked like. Take this piece of nylon braid. We're going to put it over the top. And then we're going to use heat shrink with epoxy in it. The reason we use heat shrink with epoxy in it is to keep the heat shrink in place, keep the nylon in place. This actually glues itself into the nylon and makes it so the nylon can't pull out. We're going to do the same thing with the tailgate doors, because those have to be big, substantial bonds. Now the vehicle doors themselves, we're going to use different stuff. I'm going to use probably some braid off some 393. And that allows us to sneak it through the gaskets on the inside of the door. And I mean the rubber boots that carry the wiring harness. The doors aren't as important, for the most part, in my opinion, as the roof, the hood, and the tailgate. Those are huge, flat, metal surfaces. And how about you go about placing your bonds there is also very important to how the antenna sees those metal masses. We'll cover that here in a minute. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the next couple hours of my life hydraulically, well, first drilling out all 20 of these eyelets, hydraulically crimping all 20 of these eyelets, soldering all 20 of these eyelets. And then we're going to start placing them on the vehicle. So we got the solder pot out, and it took its sweet ass time getting up to temperature. So here we are, an hour and a half later. I did a couple test pieces here because I just want to see how it turned out. There is no better way to do mass eyelets than with a solder pot. These are going to be our door bonds. These are made from the shield of 393. This is liquid flux. Just a very quick dab in that. And we're done, just like that. Quick dab in here. And we're done, just like that. So instead of me having to sit here with a torch and do every single one of these, the work now just got turned into seconds. Seals the eyelet, seals the wire. Seconds, I mean mere seconds, and we're done. I love this thing, love it. As always, there's that debate on if soldering the eyelet is necessary or not. It's my setup. I do what I want. And this is the same level of thing that I try to bring to everybody's install that I do over here. If they're willing to pay for it and let me have the vehicle for long enough. And let me reinforce to you, I hate doing installs. That's why I'm trying to show you guys this process. So maybe y'all can do it yourself and I don't have to be involved. Like me physically doing the work. But it also gives us a common reference material. And I got a little odd duck one. You guys are going, what's up for? Then you're going to laugh when you find out. So those are all the same length. We got one that's much shorter now. See if you can guess what it's for. Put the comments below. Put them down below, what you think it's for. So I said earlier that people get their bonding ground and their electrical ground backwards and tied together all the time in their heads. This is true. God, not a prettier connector could ever have been soldered. Look at that. Never have to worry about water getting in there, never have to worry about nothing. This connection will still be intact 100% after I sell the vehicle, I'm sure. 10 years from now. We're going to do dual shared load. So we're going to use heavy enough eyelets, or heavy enough wire, this, to help distribute ground potential across the vehicle electric-wise. Okay. Plus we're going to do the RF ground. Think of how long this would have taken if I was doing this with a torch. God, I'm so grateful Prime taught me about this. I shot a video of that even. I think it's BBI Prime fluxing shit up or something is what I called the video. This is one of these things that when you learn about it, you're like, damn. This is called dross. Taking the little bit of flux slag and that kind of thing, and we're scraping it off the top of the solder crucible. We're going to share that workload with these jumpers, but then we're going to have a committed electrical ground, and the reason we do that is so we don't have what they call a ground loop, which is a fancy term for electrical isolation, where you've got things at different electrical potentials. You want to make everything the same, and having everything the same helps you in multiple different ways. The main way that a ground loop presents itself is you'll have alternator whine. That's going to be a very big first sign that you have a ground loop going on. In your audio, your ground whine in your equipment, your alternator, wow. That's ground loop. It's AC noise. Different electrical potentials between your equipment. But two, it expresses itself in your electronics going batty in your equipment. Dash gauges, that kind of thing. And I have yet to find, I say this in all seriousness, I have yet to find anything that we can't clamp off with either more ground or ferrite material. Now this little segment of video that you're watching has taken hours of prep work. I'm like 5 hours in this already today. Figuring out what all the different lengths of the wire need to be, figuring out where I'm going to place stuff. Can I get in there with a Dremel? Can I get in there with the drill? Can I get in there with the, screwdriver, nut driver, whatever. And figuring out what lengths I need to make everything to make it all fit. And then coming in here, physically cutting the wire, hydraulically crimping everything. This all looks quick and easy on camera. I'm here to tell you, it is not. But this constitutes most of the bonding system that's going to take place in the vehicle. There's one more major connection, which is our electrical connection, which we will cover. Here in yet another segment. Oh, I love this. I'm so grateful for this knowledge. Thank you, Prime. Thank you, sir. He was kind enough to let me come be involved with the last 32 pill that was built with his name attached to it, 2879 style amplifier. And that's when I got to learn about this. We were soldering up the power leads for it. He did a really innovative thing. He'd bring like 3/0 gauge wire, 4/0 gauge wire into the amp deck. He'd run it down the length of the amp deck, then he'd take like 8 gauge wire and wrap it around the 3/0 cable and then run that down to the board as the distribution bus. And then he had multiple leads going in. And he figured out that you can literally take the jacket of this wire and submerge it and not melt it. You just flux it, dip it, twist it, pull it out. I was like, damn, that's some neat shit right there. And it always looked perfect. And I always wondered when I'd work on his boxes, when they'd show up over here, the couple that have, up until I got to be close with him, how that actually worked. Also, working in credit where I get credit where credit's due, the person that got me thinking along these lines about how to set all this up first was a guy by the name of 250 out of Spokane, Washington. First name's Dwayne. Dwayne's the head Leroy. He's the one that had the couple tube amplifier, 3500Z amplifier named Leroy that was made for him by Dr. J. But he shared a video with me. I think it was in the that 3-tube SB220 video. He sent me a VHS cassette that had a lot of these same tips and tricks in it. He didn't cover the antenna, but he covered the batteries, he covered bonding. He covered a lot of different little tricks in that video that when I go to talk about mobiles, I refer to quite often, and I bring that knowledge up. And since we're sitting here talking about bonding, I got to give credit where I learned it. And well, 250, you're back on the hot plate again, buddy. Okay, those are probably cooled off. Let's do the last two. These are for the pop hatch on the Suburban. So, have you guys entered in your guess on what the little short strap is for? I bet quite a few of you are going to get it straight, right out the hop. I can almost guarantee it. I can't wait to read the comments on this video. Okay. So now go through and we'll clean all of our dross off. And then I'm gonna come over here. It's a solder bar. Just melt some solder up in here for next time. So be ready to use next time. We turn that off, let it sit for 2 or 3 hours. It'll come back to a solid. But that is how we do a ton of eyelets really fast, and they're all electrically correct. I never have to worry about these eyelets breaking down, getting corroded, going bad. None of that. I can dismiss all of that from my mind. Just go ahead and we'll clean that up. Got any other weird fuzzy hangers in here? Not so much. All right. This is as far as I get to go with this today. I've got to stop. I've got a bunch of other stuff I got to go work on. I got to go finish up this 10 pill for my buddy Richard, and I've got a customer coming to town here in the next couple days. I got a lot of stuff I got to get done. So, believe me, we shall return. Right now, everybody in YouTube land's going, but BBI, you forgot one thing. I didn't forget it. I just temporarily misplaced it in my mind. The short jumper. I thought I would tease my way out of that last segment. And I temporarily misplaced it in my mind, what I was going to do. So, like I said, I want everybody to kind of comment on this and leave a comment down in the comment section on what this little jumper's for. Kind of interested to see if anybody's figured it out yet. I was sitting here getting ready to put the nylon coating on the wire, like that. I thought, man, I better go back and re-tease that and tell everybody, hey, and give the reveal of what it's for. The metal gas door. I'm not kidding you. I'm going to bond the gas door too. Okay, so first off, let me say we're now outside. I've got the big windsock on my microphone here. It is a little windy today. If there's a little bit of wind noise, I'm sorry. I've done the best I can to mitigate it. But we're going to start down the process of doing bonding. Okay, so bonding is a fancy word. And all that bonding means is to bring one panel of metal or one surface area to the same RF electrical potential as the next panel. That's how we're going to imply the bonding term in this video. And I'm going to do the best I can to cover this to the best that I understand how this to work. Now, this whole segment is the only portion of this installation video that gives my boner nightmares. There is a lot of people, and I can feel it already, that are going to have a lot of opinions about what I decide to show here. And they're going to tell me that I got it wrong on a lot of different things. I get all of that. I understand that, and I'm ready for that. But this is the best way to set this up that I know how. So we went ahead and we installed our first bonding straps last week. Now, the previous segment of video that you guys just got done watching on the workbench was me last Sunday. It is now Friday evening, and I'm back on my time. Well, BBI, where you been for a week? You haven't been working on anybody in for it. Wrong. I spent the last 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, literally 7 days, working on a huge install on a guy's semi. He wanted me to shoot a video, then he didn't want me to shoot a video, then he wanted me to shoot a video, then he didn't want me to shoot a video, and then he didn't want me to show everybody what I was doing, and no video. Believe me, there's not one day that ever gets to go by over here where I just get to sit down and watch TV or relax. I'm constantly working. So I apologize for the delay in the YouTube videos, but I've been busy doing other stuff that pays really well, and unfortunately, I showed my customer that was here this last week how much YouTube pays me. He goes, oh my God, it's nothing. I'm like, yep, that's right. So I stayed fully, wholeheartedly focused on his install and his work. Okay, back to the bonding issue. There's a couple principles that we're going to try to apply universally as we go. You have to remember that the antenna is at the top of the vehicle. The antenna is at the top of the vehicle in the back. So that's your emanation source. So your energy is coming from that antenna and it's radiating. It's radiating out from the antenna in every which direction. So thusly, we want to pick up our bond potential at the corner of every panel, because the RF wants to run to that one, run to the edges of things, but two, it's going to be our closest possible electrical connection in proximity to our antenna. You want to keep that pathway between the antenna, puck mount, and whatever panel, in this particular situation, we're going to do the hood, as short as electrically possible. As short as electrically possible. So you have to draw an imaginary line between the antenna and, in particular, this application is the hood. Well, let's scroll over here. We can't go and grab ground in the middle of the hood. There's glass in the way, okay? And the way the RF is going to see it is the path from the antenna down a pillar support and then to the fender and then up to the hood. So we want to grab it at the top corner or at the corner of every single thing we do. That's the reason that we're placing it on the outside edge. Otherwise, the RF is going to see the pathway from the antenna, across the roof, pillar post, out to the middle of the hood, and then up. Well, you want to grab it as close as you can to your joint area. That way you can bring its electrical potential as close to the shortest pathway as possible to the antenna. That's bonding. Bonding 101. Okay, bonding 102, the advanced class. It's not all that advanced, it's pretty self-explanatory. Underneath every single one of these bolts, I've gone with a Dremel, a sanding disc, and cleaned off the primer, paint, and clear. So we've got good metal to metal contact. We're going to use big metal attachment points, heavy duty, as big as we can. This pressure, the pressure of the 2 points coming together, is how you make your connection. It is the most important connection that you're going to have here, is going to be that bonded pressure, that actual physical pressure at the joint. You get the whole joint cleaned up, use clean eyelet, and then you sandwich that in there between the bolt. You get it nice and tight. And because we're not in a high water environment here at this particular joint, I didn't do any of the other tricks that I did on the other joints, like submerged soldered de-eyelets. That's to help with corrosion, by the way. And then some other stuff that I'm going to teach you later on down the line. Cleaned up underneath here, cleaned up underneath here. We make this jumper as short as possible to physically do the job without causing damage to the strap. You're going to use something that is at least an inch wide or better to do the connection. And in turn, when you're done, you come back and you spritz this with a little bit of clear. Because remember, you just created a bare, naked metal surface area that might get exposed to moisture. Well, it's going to get exposed to moisture. So you spritz this with a little bit of clear, you spritz this with a little bit of clear, you're going to seal up the paint edge where the metal comes together, and the connection with a little bit of paint on every single joint. Otherwise, your shit's going to rust. Now, there's two ways to think about this. One way is that you just take flat braid, you backfill it with a little bit of solder, and then you go ahead and you make your attachment point. You fill up the braid with solder, which is, in my opinion, the cheaper way of doing things, but it works. It works really well, actually. Fill it up with solder, drill a hole in the braid, and then put the braid under here directly. That way you're not having the copper eyelet. Me, personally, I like hydraulically fitted ends that are, you know, got themselves a little cold weld action going on, a little bit of solder. And this seems to me, in my opinion, a little bit better of a connection. But the flat braid thing, I've used that in my previous 2 installs, and it has worked beautifully. It has worked beautifully. Okay, so this is how we bonded the hood. We did this on both sides. Now the hood, as far as the RF is concerned, is now closer. We cannot say is at, because it's not one continuous piece of metal, but it is closer to the same electrical potential as the rest of the vehicle. So therefore, it's going to use this surface area as a radiating platform. Otherwise, it's got to go through all these crappy joints and the resistance of all the joints and the hinges and all this crap to the RF. The RF will see the hood is something that it can't use as a radiating point because of the increased resistance, and therefore is going to cut down on your surface area on your vehicle you're going to be able to capitalize on to transmit with. Okay, so now we're around here at the driver's door. And what we got going on here is we've got our bond as high up in the door jamb as we can get it. Like up here might be possibly ideal, but that's ugly to look at. So our closest compromise is down here at the hinge. Once again, make the joint as short as possible. Once again, we pre-drill a hole. Once again, we're going to go closest to the metal mass for the hinge that we can get ourselves to. And once again, it sees the pillar post of the roof come down. We want to grab that as close as we can to the door. That way it's going to see the door at the same electrical potential. Once again, I apologize for the wind noise. So clean the metal up, hydraulically crimped and pressured eyelet that's soldered. And then we're using a star washer to bite in on top of that. So the joint's cleaned up, the metal and all the undercoat and everything, or the primer and the paint's all been removed. Drilled, pre-tapped, self-tapping screw, suck it into the door. Same thing on this side. And then again at the very bottom end of the door. Why do we want to do the door? Because we're not able to get the big flat braid in here. I mean, we technically could, but I want to spread the bonding out. So now we're down here at the bottom. We put another bond in down here. The same thing at the very edge, leading edge of the door. That way we can capitalize on the RF's pathway. Think about it. Visualize the RF moving from A to B, B to C, C to D, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay, moving on. So here we are on the driver's side rear door. Same thing once again. All covered, cleaned, star washer, the whole 9 yards, top and bottom. Now let's get to the fun bit. The fun bit. The rear hatch. So the rear hatch is a little bit trickier. One, there's significantly more metal mass. Two, it has to be able to flex like a gajillion times because everybody and their brother is going to open this rear hatch over their lifetime. Three, it's also a water-prone area. As water runs off the roof, as you can see, the manufacturer, it'd be Ford, GMC, Dodge, whoever the hell you want to go with, is going to do the best they can to mitigate the water migration through this area. You have to keep in mind, if you punch a hole in here, you're going to create a rust point. And if you punch a hole into the body of the vehicle, you are going to create a rust point, unless you do something to help mitigate, once again, fancy word for describing how we're going to stop water getting into the joint. And I've got the little tips and tricks and the keys that are going to help you get that. Now that I've shot this little portion of the video, I see that I need to change how the camera is orientated. Hold on. So how you do this is entirely up to you. I chose myself this location because one, it was convenient, two, it was easy access for the tools, and three, it made the most bend radius sense. I'm only asking this to make like maybe a 20 or 30 degree rotation change to the strap, and it gives us allows us to have the closest folding action that we can have, short of coming straight down and then going through our hinge point, which we don't want to have to take the chance of having rust or water get into that. Once again, we want to go to the corner. Apologize. Had a friend of mine that lives right here by me walk up and start talking to me, and they didn't realize I was videoing. Okay, so like I was saying, this is our best option, at least for me, and what I want to do with this vehicle and how to do this. We could go directly from here to here, but then you have to worry about the closing bend radius and the hinge, and we don't want water to get into this hinge joint and start causing rust. This will have water moving through it, over it, and around it. If we look through the rest of the hood latch, everything has got a plastic inner liner protector that pokes through, and then it's got a rubber grommet that attaches to that seals it up, and then on top of that they use this sticky, nasty stuff called butyl. Well, we're going to utilize butyl ourselves because really, as human beings, this is the best stuff that we can use. It doesn't break down like silicone. Silicone does work temporarily for a good hold. Butyl is forever. It lasts forever. And that's what we have here. I went ahead and I did one of these so I could show you visually what we're shooting for. And then I'm going to do the other one over here and let you guys watch me do it live so you can get an idea of the principles that we're trying to imply. We've taken a little bit of butyl, we wadded it up and put it behind the eyelet, not in the joint, but just above where the eyelet's going to stop making contact. So when we screw the eyelet down, it's going to suck down to bare metal, but then there's going to be butyl stuffed in between this joint. So if water migrates down the body of the truck, it's going to hit the butyl and run off. It can't go underneath. It cannot go underneath. We do the same thing on all the other joints, and before we're done here, I will take butyl and I will cover up this entire fitting, and then on top of that I'm going to squirt this with a little bit of paint. So let's go ahead and let's reset to the other side of the vehicle and let's get this done so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this magical material that we got is called Scotch Fill, made by 3M. Now the reason it's called Scotch Fill and not butyl is because butyl is owned by another company, okay? The term butyl. But this is the same thing. It's electrical insulation putty. It comes on a roll. It's covered in wax sticky tape, and this stuff is brutal. If we didn't like a guy when I was in the cable business, when I was building cell towers and cell phones and cable TV systems and stuff, we'd take a little wad of this butyl about that big. We'd roll it up in a little ball, and we'd walk by and just throw it on the seat of his truck. This butyl is like an asphalt-based material. Very soft, very malleable. It never breaks down. It doesn't go away. It doesn't disintegrate with soap. And so he would sit on this and you couldn't feel this on your butt, but it would get in your clothes. And then get up in the cloth of your clothes and in the cloth of your seat. I don't care how bad you scrape. I don't care how much you wash. I don't care what you put on your clothes. This doesn't come out. This little bit of butyl, next thing you know, he'd be walking around with black dots on his shorts. Well, times that by 50, and guess what? That guy's quitting because now all his clothes are nasty and gross. Butyl is an amazing thing. Okay, or Scotch Bright Fill, or 3M Scotch Fill. It's good stuff. I bought this off Amazon. I also did a Facebook post here a couple months ago because I'm getting ready to do a huge coax upgrade on my station and change a bunch of stuff myself on my own station. And I need a butyl. You put butyl around all your grounding joints, all that kind of stuff. First, in the real world, if you're going to put butyl on an electrical joint, so joint to joint, you're going to put these two eyelets together, let's say, just like this. Okay. Put the two eyelets together, nice clean connection, put your bolt through, tighten it down. You come back and then you put a layer of electrical tape over that, and then you put a layer of butyl and then another layer of electrical tape. And what you're doing is you're creating a surface for the butyl to sit on that is removable. Okay? And then over that, you're putting a coating of electrical tape to protect the butyl from collecting dirt. So in the future, if you ever wanted to take this joint apart, you come along and you cut the butyl in one spot and you cut it multiple times, and then you cut down through the electrical tape. And then you can peel the whole thing off like peeling a banana. Here comes the wind. Okay. So we just got done dremeling this. I'm gonna come in here and get rid of all the dust. Because remember, you want to have this joint spotless. Resist the urge to touch the joint. Just saying. Fight the urge. Fight the urge, man. We're going to slide through the hinge joint at the top, and we're going to bring our eyelet around. The reason we want to keep our fingers off of that is because your fingers have got oil, and that little bit of oil can cause you to eventually have a rust blowout. Maybe not today, but in maybe 10 years. Oh yeah, I love that wind. I apologize, you guys. And if you do decide to do it this way with using these mount bolts, be smart. Don't be stupido. Only remove one bolt and only do one bolt per side. Otherwise, you're going to end up having alignment issues with your tailgate or your hood. Another good installer's trick is tape on the end of your ratchet. This tape has saved me I don't know how many times, especially when tightening down batteries or other electrical connections, because it's boop, arc, blow a hole in the body of the vehicle. Okay, so now we're going to preload. I'm pre-twisting the eyelet. And I want it to sit roughly about here, right here. So we're going to grab our drill. We're going to right in the middle of the eyelet. Do a tiny little pilot hole. Now, the next tip I'm going to give you, and this is really stupid important, is never, ever, never, ever, never should you ever, for any reason, ever pre-drill or drive a screw into a body panel without knowing what's directly behind this. Don't do it. Take 5 minutes. Take the interior panel apart. Physically sweep it with your hand. Make sure there's nothing back here. You could run the screw through here and be like, oh, that's great. This does exactly what I want. And then come to find out you went through your windshield wiper control, your antenna, part of the electrical harness for the vehicle, and you go to turn on the car and hit the brakes, and all of a sudden the car catches on fire. That's if the fuse has been bypassed, but I'm just saying. Never ever do this without knowing what's behind here. Now, damn wind. Now, if you guys have been following along with the channel, you'll know that I had the entire interior of this thing out not even a week and a half ago. And I spent a ton of time, my big ass fat butt crammed in the frame of this vehicle, working in this corner and working on the inside of the interior. There's nothing here. I know that because I looked at it before I put the panels back on, physically swept it with my fingers, and looked visually felt and visually looked to verify that there was nothing there. So now we're going to Dremel this down. And you want to clean this up. Now, unfortunately, why I had this all apart, because I can already hear some installer or some guy out there, I figured out how to do it better by just watching him. Yeah, you're right, you probably will. There was no way for us to be able to sneak a nut and a washer and a bolt through this panel piece on the inside for us to be able to get the ultimately good connection, like the pro installation. I did not feel like drilling holes and doing all this other garbage to make it so I could put a nut and a bolt and real mounting hardware through there. I did not feel like doing it. Now, if I was running a big AC truck and it was going to be a soul-heartedly committed, purposed vehicle for operation of doing that, you bet your ass I'd take the time to do that. You bet your ass. So now we're going to take butyl. There's very little electrical energy that's going to be attached to this connection, by the way. Just saying. Take the butyl and we're going to turn it into a little round semicircle. And we're going to attach it on the paint level, all the way around where that eyelet's going to go. We're just going to push it down. We're going to bring our eyelet and we're going to lay it right down on top of that joint. See that? Butyl joint. Okay. Let's see if I can do this and not drill a hole through my finger. Nope. Fail attempt number 1. Let's pick up all of our hardware, which is nothing more than a washer, a star washer. Let's try this again. Okay, now we're going to stop before we get it all the way pulled down. Once again, clean up our joint. Then I'm going to lay this to where I want it to have contact with the eyelet. I lay it up high. Lay it up high. And then I push the eyelet down through the butyl, dragging the butyl through the joint, or to the joint. And we're done. The reason that piece of butyl is really important, and behind it, as this water comes down off the roof, it's going to hit the butyl and it cannot migrate underneath the eyelet. A little bit of extra butyl, we're going to fold it up. And we're going to make another little round piece of butyl, long, thin, round piece of butyl here, about the thickness of a spaghetti strand. We're going to smiley face it around this joint. Now, there's people out there who are like, well, it shit doesn't stick very well. Yeah, the first time it gets hot, there is nothing getting in underneath this joint, nor am I ever going to get this stuff off of here. Like, ever am I ever going to get this stuff off of here. We work this down, working it in, pressing it up against the metal. And I'll probably, before I put paint on this over the top, because remember you want to have a protective coating on this butyl, or otherwise shit's going to stick to it. Every little bit of dirt, and you'll end up having a brown, ugly nut. It's at the trunk of your vehicle. Okay. I'll come out here and I'll heat this up with a paint stripper gun and get it fairly warm. And that butyl's going to get stupid soft, just like asphalt, and it's going to stick to everything. And I mean everything. The only time you need to worry about doing this, once again, is in high moisture flow environments. Now I'll take another piece of butyl and I'm going to go over the top of all of this and work it down in and around the screw head. That's so we can maintain the cleanliness of the joint. We can make sure water's not going to get inside the vehicle, and we're also helping prevent rust, because this is going to be a high moisture environment. The rest of the other joints on the inside of the doors and that kind of thing, they're low moisture environments. That's why we can just go along and spray it with a little bit of paint and be relatively content in our heart that we're not causing potential for long-term damage. You'll notice the butyl is starting to get shiny. It means it's getting hot. Do not use flame. This stuff is flammable, okay? If you use an open flame, you have the potential of setting this on fire. Remember, it's an asphalt-based material. It's Friday afternoon, my phone hasn't stopped ringing. I can hear it ringing up in the shop now. You just want to heat this up and make it super soft. If you're doing this install and it's 110 degrees out, this shit will stick to everything. And I mean like everything. So we just want to heat this up enough to make it really, 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 really pliable. You want to make it so water cannot get in here. Very simple. And you want to put this at an angle. You don't want to put it flat. At an angle, the water can run off. If you put it flat, you're creating a shelf where the water can hang out and eat at the paint and maybe work its way underneath the connection. This trunk and the hood are your two most vital, and I mean vital, joints that you're going to be able to work with in the vehicle to be able to increase your ability to talk. The more metal mass you can put underneath that antenna at the same electrical potential that allows you to have more surface area, the better you're going to be. Let's help this paint set up because it is awfully cool out here today. Now the butyl also will act as it'll keep the screw from being able to back out. The star washer's there to help have a more metal to metal bond, but that screw's never backing out. And because I didn't put tape on it, this connection is there forever. I mean, I might be able to get some acetone up in there after I get the butyl peeled off one little tiny piece at a time and be able to get that cleaned up and I can redo that joint. But you get one shot at getting this right if you're going to use butyl. So now I got to come back. I'm going to spritz paint this joint and sprit paint the other joint because once again, high moisture environment, want to keep that water out. I got this finished just in time. My installer is here. Yes, my installer, my lifelong friend. Phi is here. And now we're going to put shock sensors, GPS tracking, satellite or a cell phone two-way communication, shock glass sensor, whole bunch of other yummy stuff up in here, 360-degree video monitoring, remote install for the alarm. So till tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll continue on. We're gonna jack the thing up and we're gonna put bonding all up and down the frame and stuff, and we'll show you all of that too. My least favorite part, but the most important part of the whole freaking thing. Yeah. A little girly jack ain't gonna get her done this morning. Let's get the teeter. Okay, so least in favorite, most unfavorite portion of this whole thing is frame to body. So, me being a very thick human being around the chest, aka fat, I can't just crawl underneath here and do this. I gotta give myself a little bit more chest space to breathe here. And because I like living without broken ribs, We're gonna put a jack stand in here too. And I'm tired of laying on this goddamn ground. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about health and safety here real quick. So you're gonna be drilling into your frame, you guys. Wear safety glasses. I don't wanna hear about anybody losing an eyeball from this. Use jack stands, be smart about it, okay? Second thing is, you wanna use big beefy hardware. This isn't the place where you're gonna use a self-tapping screw. It's just not gonna work out very well for you. Okay, make sure you use strap. Yes, you can use soldered strap with a hole drilled in it. Next thing, you're gonna need a drill. Because when you're going into the frame, even though you got self-tapping hardware, it's usually best if you pre-drill it first. You're gonna need an impact for your big beefy hardware, or if you're gonna be girly enough and you're gonna try and use self-tapping screws, I wish you the best of luck. You're probably gonna snap 3 or 4 off and cut part of your finger off doing the process. And what I mean by cut part of your finger off, scrape skin off. Okay. You are gonna need a lap disc, a sanding disc of some kind, a grinder or something. You're also gonna need paint. This is the shitty portion of trying to do an install. I hate doing this part, but it is absolutely necessary. For the entire length of the vehicle, from about here to about back there, every 12 to 18 inches, you are going to put a strap from the frame to the body. 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 This is a horrible experience, and I hope you all enjoy doing it. I'm going to save the last 3 on this side for when I go and I do the pass-through cable. What I mean by pass-through is the power wire that's going to pass through the floor eventually. I did this last night because I was changing out my headlights. I got 500,000 candle power fog lights in this thing now. And I did the whole front because I had to take this wheel well out, the mud guard and the wheel well out, so I figured while I was in there I'd zip that in. I wasn't thinking about it. I got to take all that out again for when I put the dual alternators in, because I'm going to bond up the frame on this side, bond up the frame on that side, and tie them together for ground on the vehicle. Really, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're creating an RF bond and you're creating your electrical bond, okay, to help carry the 12-volt current to the vehicle. Now, is this really necessary in you guys that are running, like, let's say a 2-pill? No. Will it help you get out a whole lot better? Oh, yes. Is it absolutely necessary? No. I remember when I went on this trip one time, I was dating this girl. She was she's a lot of work. Man, she was super slut. Anyhow, we went on this trip down to see some friends in California, and I put a mag mount on top of her car, right? Threw a 2-pill in her trunk, put a striker radio up by the front dash, and we went to driving. And we very quickly found out that we could only talk about 3 or 4 miles on 500 watts. Well, come to find out, her roof, only right where I put the magnet for the mag mount, only had about 2 feet worth of metal around it. So all the RF was going straight up in the sky. We get down there to California, and my friends that were down there, they helped me get enough braid that we could bond from the roof line down her pillar post, down into the trunk. And then all of a sudden we could talk like 30 miles. Amazing. So bonding does help. It really does. We're doing dual purpose. We're going to do like what I'm going to show you here in a second. We're going to do an RF bond, electrical bond, RF bond, electrical bond, RF bond, electrical bond. So let's crawl underneath this thing. Let's take a look. We'll use this as a good example. If we look here, we'll see that we have the stock electrical ground for the vehicle. That is what they're utilizing, a little tiny wire. We've come along and we've added 1.5 inch wide strap. We sanded it back, made it clean, painted it up. Same thing up there. So we move forward another 18 inches or so. Sanded it back, cleaned it up, added hardware. Move forward again another 18 inches. Sanded it up, cleaned it up, added hardware. Another 18 inches. Sanded it up, cleaned it up, added hardware. We go back and we paint it, and we paint it, and we paint it, and we paint it to help prevent this stuff, rust. We don't want rust. No rust. Rust is bad. Okay, if you can't tell, I've lost all the enthusiasm for this project today. I just got enough cuts and scrapes, and I'm tired of being dirty. It's a week and a half of being dirty, but okay, so we're going to say this is your standard grounding strap. In an ideal world, and you had complete access to everything, and you didn't have to worry about dropping tools into your eyeballs or nothing, you would want to do star washer, washer, eyelet, okay, to the frame. A lot of situations you're balancing a lot of stuff above your head. Star washer, nut, eyelet, the frame. You got to have that star washer in there to keep this from backing out. You just do. If you can't get the big nut up in there, that's fine. On this particular portion of bonding, you can go this route. It's perfectly acceptable. All you're doing is, it's not the size of the screw that matters. It's not. Despite what they taught you in grade school, it is not. This is pressure. All we are doing is we're trying to apply pressure to a bare piece of metal, to another bare piece of metal, apply pressure. If this screw can get that job done, so be it. Now, this is an RF bond, which means there's going to be very little current on it. Hence the reason we're using electrical bonds as well, and we're using big beef hardware on it to hold more pressure. It also increases the contact surface area of the bolt to the frame body. Now, when we go to do the actual DC electrical grounds, which are not in this video, that is a whole nother nightmare, and let me show you what I mean. Either I can run 4 eyelets like this to the frame in 4 different spots, or I've got to go and create a place for this. This is an electrical connection. This is going to have lots and lots of shmoo moving through it. Okay? This is for 4/0 cable. This is for 500 MCM. I mean, that's big, yeah. That's my thumb. I got big hands. It's almost 1 inch across right here. See the difference? We're going to use big hardware. We're going to use long bolts. We're going to drill literally through both sides of the frame. We're going to have stainless steel hardware on all of this. This is going to be pure metal to metal. We're going to cover that in a later video for the electrical connection. It's very important that you use the frame and the electrical connection as well, and you don't just run an independent hot and an independent ground. I did that when I built the car audio truck, and I had lots of problems with ground loops because everything had a different potential of ground that was attached to it. So I ended up having to run bonds to everything in that too, and then added more ground, and then the ground looping issue went away. But for all intents and purposes today, what we're talking about is just getting these 2 connections. Now, you can go ahead and use flat braid the entire thing. Sure can. I want to be able to pull more current through my frame and make sure I've got more current on the body. Now, if we take and we spread this wire out and make it flat, there's about the same amount of strand count that's in here that's in this. That's the reason they can fit in the same eyelet. Okay, but flat and wide is for RF. This is for electrical. All right, I think I got all this covered. I'm going to go back to hell now. I'm going to go crawl around underneath my truck some more. And I'm going to get these last 9 bonds in. I got to put down that side. So, gentlemen, my name is BBI. Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm the biggest mud duck in Idaho. What that counts for, don't know. Don't care anymore. I'm just here to teach and help other people enjoy radio. Hopefully you guys took a little bit from this. I'd like to say this was a pleasure, but I hate grounding and I hate bonding and I hate working on this stuff. I hate it. I hate doing installs. I hate it. So don't ask me to come do your install on your truck. I won't do it. If you want me to do an install on your truck, you better show up with a lot of the greenbacks, because I got to use the best coax, I've got to use the best connectors. There's no half-assery that goes on, because my name's attached to it. You know, that time for half-assery was when I was a child and younger, and no, now that sticker, my name, is associated with a little bit higher standard in my opinion. So I do my best, but as far as I'm concerned, don't call me for installs. These are just tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. There's going to be guys out there that are going to roll their eyes and say, oh, do it this way. Okay, fine, go try it. This is what I found, and this worked best for me. And what I mean by best is not just an opinion, a measurable difference. Like bonding your doors. The reason I did that is because I had a 64 pill in the truck at one time, and every time I key down, my door would shock me. I got tired of that, and so I bonded the doors, and they quit shocking me. They weren't at a different electrical potential than the antenna. And then I also noticed after I mapped it with a field strength meter that I was actually transmitting off that side of the vehicle a little bit harder. And I went, oh, wait a minute, So I bonded up all the other doors. Okay. The bond down the frame, that was a thing that I figured out with another guy, that he had read something on the internet someplace, and we spent a whole night in his shop bonding up the frame. And he became very dominant in the truck. Very dominant truck because of that. So, it is what it is. Lessons are learned. Right? Believe me when I tell you, this is from a measured thing, not an opinion thing. So hopefully this helps you. If you guys have any questions or anything I didn't cover in this video, or something that you want to teach me, don't hesitate to call or text. I'd love to chat with you about it. Because this is one of the things in the mobile that is a never-ending research project in my mind.
Yes, master.
I've also found that in the mobile, when you go to do a shootout or whatnot, you're talking off one. Let's say this is your Suburban or your truck. You're going to talk off one side or the other. And I've always noticed the side that's got the alternators on it, and the side that's got all the ground wires and shit attached to it, is usually the side of the truck that talks a little bit better. The front nose of it anyhow. So you could manipulate the directionality of your truck by changing the bond potential behind the scenes. I'm just saying, it's food for thought. It is definitely something we messed with a long time ago. It's nothing I'm interested in doing now. This is the plain Jane ride around truck. So I'm out. Gentlemen, have a good rest of your weekend, and like I said, hopefully this is a little bit helpful to you. Appreciate every single one of you guys. Oh. And officially I got sponsorship with MechMan now, so big shout out to XS, big shout out to Siglet, big shout out to MechMan, big shout out to Bird and Coaxial Dynamics. And a big thanks to all of you guys, well, for basically helping me be this successful. If it wasn't for all of you believing in me, sending me your equipment, watching the YouTube channel, following along, giving me thumbs up, believe me, there's not a minute of not one day that doesn't go by where I don't say thank you to each and every single one of you guys. Because honestly, without you all, I'm not here. I'll see you guys. Click, click, click.